Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Magical Witchy World TV. I am Star Ravenhawk. Rhonda? Rhonda, are you there?
Hey there. I am here. Welcome everybody. It's Rhonda Allen. Welcome to another
Okay.
week of Magical Witchy World TV. And
Okay.
on with the show.
Yes. All right. And so we are back tonight. And welcome, James. It's so Jacob Pierri. It is such a pleasure having you with us tonight on the Magical Witchy World TV.
Well, thank you for having me on. I appreciate it. It's so nice to see both of you.
Thank you. Yes, I know we've met each other
It
at
is
Witches Fest
awesome
years
to
ago, so it's
see you.
such a pleasure. Thank you.
Always, always. And we never get a chance to really chat
Oh,
because
I
you're always
know.
scattered and doing a
Yeah, and
million things
busy
at
and
one
everything
time.
else. Yeah, that happens to me a lot when people come to Witches Fest and we never have a chance to even say other than hi, bye, and because we're always so busy. But it's a pleasure. It's a pleasure.
Well, we
Thank
thank you
you.
for all your efforts
It
with
is
it. It's
a
not easy to
pleasure.
put together such
Oh,
a big
it's a lot of
production like
work.
that.
Thank you. All right. So we would have our
It's
lovely
a
Rhonda
huge amount of
kind of
work.
run down your bio. Yes, yeah, it is a huge amount
Yes.
of work, and we kind of make it look a bit too easy, so people think, oh, it's nothing, but it's a
Right.
whole lot. She's right. She's right. But let's move on with the
Yeah,
show and have
you gotta know.
Rhonda run down
Right.
our
So,
guest and what
well,
he's doing.
James, welcome, James. It's great to
Yeah.
see you again. And as we
Uh,
like to do every time we have a guest, we like to introduce everyone in the audience to our guest's background. So let me go through your bio. James Jacob
well, thank you. I'm
Pierri
flattered.
is a uniquely gifted tarot reader. And as a professional full-time reader of 25 plus, James has had a lifetime of experience and a rather unique experience it is. As a tarot reader, the bohemian metaphysical experience offered is honest, sincere, spiritual, and traditional. James has a composite heritage of Italian and Vlach Aromani cultures, bringing with that deep roots in spiritual devotion in many Catholic, Orthodox, pagan ways, seeing and learning old ways, folk magic, and divination. He does not consider himself a New Age reader, rather, an old world style reader. This is reflected in his latest published work, the Osset Gypsy Tarot Deck and Book Set, Red Feather MBS Publishing, a sort of fantasized autobiography of his journey with tarot. In it, he brings back to the 21st century the feel of old European tarot cards, as the minor arcana are reminiscent of Italian playing cards, similar to Marseille style decks. The major arcana is contemporary with traditional tarot symbolism and is very robust and beautiful. As he quotes, I didn't grow up seeing or using the Rider Waite Smith tarot cards. We used old fashioned Italian playing cards. Yeah. Or as he affectionately refers, non cheat sheets. I love that. James has delivered his special. I do. James has delivered his special brand of tarot readings and work over the decades, nationally and internationally, via all modes of media such as TV, film, radio, podcast, and horoscope columns. Proprietor of 3 Osset Gypsy Shop locations, studied anatomy and physiology, Ayurvedic medicine, and aromatherapy. Also, James is a legally priest of Isis, goddess Mirianimos, head of the Isium of the Sacred Lotus affiliated chapter of the Temple of Isis in Gyersville, California, and lifelong devotee of the Black Donna. James offers 2 separate reading experience, a 30-minute consultation complete with a brief meditation, removal of bad luck, and candle lighting ceremony. as a combined tarot and astrology consultation, referring to a horary astrology, location astrology, and various focuses on love, career, spiritual matters, and special dates and brief meditation, candle lighting, and removal of bad luck. Appointments can be made via Zoom, phone, and in person. And James is available in well, you're way, I should say, way from us now. We're up in the Northeast and you're down in the Southeast. But in any case, watch for details on Instagram at Offset Gypsy. And of course, we will be scrolling along the screen tonight during our conversation where people can find you
Bravo.
www.offsetgypsy.com. Right on.
All
Wow,
right.
I
Thank you so
applaud
much
you for
again for making the time.
that. Thank you for that, for reading that whole
Hey.
entire lengthy bio.
Oh no,
That was a
absolutely.
mouthful.
Hey, that's a lot of work and a lot of years, and we want to celebrate that. We want to
Well,
celebrate that.
thank
So
you.
yeah,
Oh, I appreciate
you're
that.
so
Yeah.
welcome. You're so welcome.
All right. So we've been looking forward to this conversation with you. And one of the things I wanted to ask you out front is kind of like we kind of see over the years that people like myself or you or whomever, we kind of call ourselves different names or
Mm.
titles as we go along, and I don't mean the ones that they appoint to us, but the ones we say about ourselves.
Right.
I
Hmm.
remember thinking, oh, I'm an occultist, and then I went to no, I started out as a high magician, then an occultist, then I'm a witch. And then people started telling me about Wiccan, and I'm like, what the hell is Wiccan? And then I go, oh, you mean a witch, right? They're like, no, 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 Wiccan. I'm like, okay, I kind of got confused there, but whatever. So I'm kind of wondering what was your journey like, and what did you call yourself along the
You
way?
know what? So similar to what you just described. I grew up in the little mythological city of Hoboken, New Jersey, across from the Hudson River, with
I
Manhattan
love
as my
that
backyard. And
mythological.
so I didn't have that luxury of growing up in a place like out in the woods and trees and that whole fantasy-esque thing. I grew up in a little city in the shadow of one of the world's biggest cities. And I remember the first time I heard the word Wicca
Mhm.
as well too. We were with suburban friends down at the Jersey Shore, and they kept telling us, "City boys, we're Wiccan." I'm like, "What are they saying?" I'm like, "Are they saying they're wicked?" I thought it was suburban slang. I'm like, "All right, I'll just go with it." But I did
Love
get an
it.
appreciation for Wicca. I over time. I mean, when I made that joke, I was a teenager, but that was the interesting point. I wasn't introduced to like new age shops and all of that until my very late teens,
Mm,
early 20s. Because if the both of you remember, we had we had Magical Child and we had some,
Yeah,
really cool uh shops in the village,
right,
but
right. I
that was
remember
in the
that in
village
the West Village.
where
yeah.
when you grew up in the city, like around Hoboken, there was no new age shops. So we had like our supermarkets and our little areas, and I got to see like all these really old world European stuff. But it didn't even stop at that in Hoboken. Hoboken was such a
Huh.
melding pot of I'll just go down the list because I know the two
Mm,
of you will appreciate it. There was, of
yeah.
course, a lot of Europeans. So, this was, and then there was a lot of Mediterranean people. And then there was
Mhm,
a lot of people from down south. And then we had the big Latin explosion come in. So, when I was a kid, I grew up down by the projects. So, when we would leave our apartment building and walk past the projects, to this day, still there's a huge open shrine for
mm,
the saints, for the Santeria,
Oh, cool.
mm,
and a lot of the people who like mingled in there. And so I got to see
mhm,
that every morning. I got to see those old people come out and open it and do their blessing. So I was very familiar with that. So we were familiar with Santeria, we were familiar with voodoo, we were familiar with hoodoo, and it wasn't so different from what we saw growing up in my cultures as well too. And then we had a lot of Indian people, there was a small Jewish population, there was of course a large Catholic population, and it was everything in that one little square mile. I got to see so much. So you know what? I never used any of those words until later when I had to start writing bios and start
wow.
thinking the same thing. Well, what am I? Metaphysician,
Yeah,
occultist?
yeah, yeah.
I never
Right.
called myself a witch because that word coming from not the American culture, but the subculture I
Mm,
came from, like even strega doesn't mean the same thing in English. A cute little funny
mhm.
story, real fast. I was in
Yeah.
PantheaCon one year out on the West Coast, and I met this
Mhm.
very charming little lady. She was very short. She was much shorter than me, and she had this
Mhm.
southern drawl, this strong, maybe Texan accent. I don't know exactly what it was, and forgive me, my accents aren't that
Right.
great. And she's like, what are you? And I'm like, huh? And she's like, I'm a strega. I'm like, oh, you're Italian? So no, I'm not Italian, but I'm a strega. I'm like, in my head, I'm like, why would you call yourself that?
Oh,
That's not
yeah.
nice. Because
Right.
where I come from, the word for someone who practices magic is mayo or maya, which
Mhm.
means the man or the woman who practices magic. But
Right.
strega is like calling somebody a bad name, like they're not a nice person that does very bad nefarious things. So it was funny
Mm.
to see that turned into something different outside the culture.
Right.
I don't get upset and
Yes.
bent out of shape that it's appropriation and this, that, and the other thing. I was a musician and artist my whole life, and when you do metaphysics, I come from the
Yeah.
great, like I just described, background where I saw so much happening at once. It was like being in a jazz band.
Mm.
Everybody swaps the music and the rhythms and the beats and the instruments, and you just learn from there. But I wish I still had an answer for you because I still don't know what to say. Other people have called me all sorts of things, and if which is
That,
one of the more nicer things, I'll take it.
right, right. But that's the thing, though. You see, I kind of said, I am not going to allow others to define me. I will
Right.
define myself. We're watching it happen right now politically with people on the outside trying to define others. And we're sitting there going, no, it's not you
Mhm.
that get to decide that shit. It's I, whoever
Right.
it is, the person is, they get to define themselves. You either take their cue or you back the hell off, kind of a thing. So
Mm.
that's the way I've seen, and maybe that's me being Canadian and coming in as a New
Truth.
Yorker and going, I really don't mind your own damn business. It's whatever I say it is, kind of a thing. So
Well, we're
you
certainly a
know,
breed all of our own, I'll tell you
huh, huh,
that.
yeah, yeah. So I'm just like, you
Truth.
gotta let people name themselves. Let people decide who they are,
Yeah,
straight up.
I
So
I do agree with
whatever
that.
you
You're
say
absolutely
you
right.
want to be or are, I'm good. That's who we're gonna say you are.
I'm just James, the little
I
guy,
think.
little kid from
Well,
Hoboken.
Okay. Now you're sounding like Simone Biles. I'm just a little girl who likes to flip. I'm like, woman, please, you're way more than that.
well, if you
Okay.
can hear me, which I don't know if you can.
Yeah.
We
Oh,
can.
we
We can
can.
hear you.
We
We
got
can
you
hear you.
loud and clear.
Mm.
We can hear you. Go ahead. I
Uh
don't know if
oh.
she heard us. Uh-oh. Maybe she's not hearing us.
Unfortunately, ladies and gentlemen, Rhonda is a victim of Debbie, the hurricane that's been coming up the East Coast, and her area is getting pummeled right now. I know that
Yeah,
for a
yeah.
fact.
Yeah.
So I figured if
Yeah.
you don't hear us, I will type in the chat so you can hear what we're saying.
I
We can hear you.
I can I can hear you now. I hope you guys can hear me okay. I
Yeah,
hope you
we
can
can hear
hear
you.
me okay.
We'll start summoning you through like a Ouija board.
Awesome.
Rhonda, are you there? Are you with us, Rhonda?
Thank you. Thank, thank you. It's just nuts. Um, no, that's awesome. Thank you. I just want to, well, thank you for the background that you shared, James. I did want a neighborhood. I mean, all of that does give us the color, the imagery.
Yeah.
What what brought you? What brought you to your current practice? What was it that happened where you said, "This is work I feel I need to be doing"?
But that is a good question because when I was a little kid, I did not think I was going to grow up and become a famous fortune teller. Um, uh,
Mm.
it was always there. That is the one thing. Our families are, my family, devout believers. And I know it sounds corny and everyone always says that they had an aunt or a grandmother, but I did. My great grandmother was a famous reader, famous fortune teller in Hoboken, and she has a big
Wow.
history there, and a lot of respect. People loved her, and you know, I never want to set the stage weird like Hoboken was this big Harry Potter's Hogwarts. Everybody was learning mystical, magical things. It was really in the culture, and I'm not the only one who left Hoboken doing what I do either. I have a lot of friends my
Mm,
age and even a little bit younger that have gone on to the world, and when we talk about it now, it's things that were so normal to us that it wasn't until we left
mm,
that bubble that we realized wasn't always the norm every place else. It really was
mm,
a natural background of belief, cultural, of course, religious upbringing, and but being allowed to be open-minded to everything around us. So we were allowed to ask a lot of questions, we were
mm,
allowed to see a lot of other things, we were encouraged. So it was always in me. They thought when I was a very little kid I was going to grow
yeah.
up and be a Catholic priest. I mean, they were close. I didn't
Wow.
become a Catholic priest,
Yeah.
but I did become a priest
Yeah.
of the goddess Isis and legally ordained. And that was
Mhm.
a big step in my life, and it wasn't something I took lightly, and it wasn't something I did overnight. It took about almost 10 to 13 years to complete that whole
Wow.
Right.
portion of my life.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Wow.
So,
Yeah.
that's a great segue into asking you, from
Yeah.
your point of view, what does it mean to be that person that you became, that legal ordained person and the priest of Isis? What does that mean to you?
Oh, it's the center of my heart. It's my true calling.
Mm,
And it is through this path that everything else opened up. I made a vocation, I made a vow very young. In
mm,
where I grew up in Hoboken, we're one of seven legit cult centers. There's many.
mm,
There's many places. I should even start wording it differently,
mm,
if you don't understand the context. To the Black Madonna, we have a very special Black Madonna in
mhm,
Hoboken, and only Hoboken people know where the shrine is. It's not open to the public. You
mm,
got to kind of be in the club, and it's not to exclude
right.
anybody, but it's to protect her because she's over 100 years old. And
Right.
Nice.
when I was a kid, my grandmother used to take me to when they would open the doors on her feast day, and we would go in and see all sorts of miracles. And she's beautiful,
Mhm.
so it really started there. But then when I was really really young and really little, the calling of Isis came on then before I could even read, because the King
Wow.
Tut exhibit came to the Met, but I was like 5 years old,
Yep.
and
Ah, I remember.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, I remember it. And but even previous to going to see that beautiful display at the Met, uh, I remember I got the book and I had my grandmother read it to me, and I was able to read at a very young age. And we would start at the beginning, go to the end, and go all the way back to the beginning. And I knew what all
Mhm.
of this was. That when I got to go to the
Wow.
opening night, because my father's company did the lighting for the exhibit, and I don't know, I was just in my element. I knew what all of this
Fabulous.
was just by call. And
Wow.
so it started really that far back, but then it put me on this whole entire trek because I was obsessed ever since I was a kid to understand where the bridges between the classical ancient world and all the different cultures all bridged and touched each other. And
Yeah.
that's been my
Yeah.
lifelong journey, and that's been like Isis
Awesome.
carrying the lantern, and I've been following.
Okay, that's awesome. Thank
That
you.
is that is fabulous. So with all of
Yeah,
this
yeah,
work and this lifelong, truly lifelong connection and practice that you've
yeah.
been developing, how explain or give us an example of how it appears or how does it look in your day-to-day life? How is this magic built into your day-to-day living?
As I've gotten older, it's much more practical. And
Mm,
when I
mhm,
was developing the Iceum, as you know, after I got initiated and went and got ordained, I was looking at all the other Iceums, and a lot of them are very ritual and ceremony focused. They're very uh, magically focused. And I realized nobody was
mm,
doing historically focused. And I always think it's important for all
mm,
of us to know, history to support our standing, so that when someone
right.
curious or a naysayer joins, face-to-face conversation, you can You can have a ground to stand on. So I've built the Iceum on practical meditation and history, and
Mm,
it becomes so important because when you understand the history of icism, there's always things I start out with depending on the audience. And I'm an Aquarius, so I love to shock. Again, it's the New Yorker in me that tickles me to just make a little fire. I always love to remind everybody Icism is an African religion. Isis
mhm,
is an
mhm.
African goddess. And some people are always like, oh, and I'm like, whatever that means to you. And then I always love
Right,
to remind people too. I'm like, it was Icism that threw open the doors to Christianity, and it was,
right,
Christianity that kind of still held on to Icism. And depending on what side of the fence it's on, everybody loses their mind. But it's fun to
right.
remind people of those three important things because
Yes.
these are the roots, these are the cultures, and it's beautiful. And when you know those cultures and that deep rooted history, and fast
Mhm.
forward to 2024, you see more similarities that bridge us all together instead of divisions
Yes.
that we think separate us. And
Right,
that's
right.
that's at this point now, we probably, like, the mundane person knows more
Mhm.
than ever in history. Most of us are all literate. I know I'm
Yes.
sitting amongst quite literate individuals right here. Look at all those books behind Star.
Star.
And
Yeah, right.
so I know that the three of us are quite literate, and people read, but we got to think this is very new to the timeline of history. Most people,
Yeah.
unless they were wealthy or went to school, they didn't get an education like this. So they either lived by superstition, or they just did whatever they were kind of shown or told.
Mhm.
Right.
So
Mhm. Mhm.
for us now to know all of this and bridge all of it, I think it's a wonderful period to bring all of us together.
Right, right.
Yeah,
Despite,
well said.
despite as we see in popular things in this day and age, of people trying to ban certain books for whatever reason they want to ban.
Mhm.
So hopefully we would not be going through that. Hopefully again, despite
Yes.
people trying. Yeah.
It's going to be up to the people, I mean, we all watch the news, and there's so much. I don't know if the news helps these situations or throws more gasoline on the fire. And I'm like, you
Mhm.
know what? I put my faith into the people. And the people
Yes.
should never wait for a governing body to tell them this deemed is correct, this is deemed incorrect. We'll make the decisions ourselves on these things. And I agree with
Well
you.
said.
I agree with you.
Well said.
Yeah, yeah.
Well
Okay.
said.
So I'm going to ask you a question, and then I'm going to have to kind of shut my window because my son has to walk to get something because I don't know
That's
how
sure.
else to do it. So,
It's okay.
okay. So what I wanted to ask you next was, what
Yeah.
do you think is most important to you in your lifestyle right now, or in any particular way?
With all of with the whole metaphysical corner of my life, it's still
Yes.
absolute study. It's continuation of never imagining that I know all and I know everything. There's always something more to really properly get familiar with. Like right now, simultaneously, I picked two very light summer reads. One is the Thrice Greatest Hermes,
Wow.
three books complete in one volume, and Picatrix. I've decided those are the two
Wow.
light summer reads.
This is this summer reading 2024. But
Yeah, no.
that's fabulous.
Apologies, apologies.
It's
That's
okay.
that's okay. It's our life, this is, this. But but let me just ask: are these books you've read before? Are you rereading? Are these are deep dives for the first
Oh,
time?
that's a good question.
Yeah.
Thrice Greatest Hermes, I convinced a good friend of mine who's no longer with us anymore to
Blessings.
buy this book over 20 years ago. And
Wow.
then when we got home, she was like, you know what? Here, you read it, give me the book report, then give it back to me, and then I'll read it. And unfortunately, I put it on my shelf for so long and always looked at it and said, I'm going to get to that. I've
Yes.
referenced the Plutarch to Clea uh, letters for a lot
Mm,
for icism, but I never read the whole thing
yes.
entirely through. And the funny thing is, the
Interest.
whole book answers all of my questions I've had since I was a kid, and the book is sitting there on my
Just sitting
shelf
there the whole
all
time.
those years. I had to take the long way around.
That is
So I'm absolutely
amazing. Yes.
loving it. I mean, I'm glad I'm reading it older and more a little more mature, taking my time with it. And
Yes.
Picatrix isn't anything completely new, but it's thorough. And it's another one of those books
Mm.
that makes you go, oh, wow, all right, this is really exercising both sides of the brain, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
Yes.
And, very fascinating. So, constant evolution and study. And that's the one beautiful thing about the Isism. It's not just always reading about Isis, but somehow, some way, she takes you and then you go so far left field and there she is. And then she takes you real far right field and there she is. And it's been a wonderful experience.
That's great. That's great. Thank you.
That is
You're welcome.
awesome. That is awesome. So you mentioned something earlier, which is part of the topic that we'd like to speak about, which is that
Hmm.
work with community. Tell us
Mm.
about what, how is the relationship with community right now? What is the work within community at this point?
I've put I've put many decades of work into the various communities in all the places I've lived. And let me tell you, I lived a lot of places. And
Yeah.
again, part of my upbringing and background was really community laden, whether it was,
Hmm.
ingrained in me just from home or Catholic school. Funny enough, I always thank Catholicism and Catholic school for all of my leanings and learnings towards, neo-paganism, ancient paganism, and metaphysics, because it was in those areas that made me question so much that I had to go find the answers. And never had a bad relationship with it. It always provided. And it was always being involved in community things as well too. One of the best things I learned growing up, my parents divorced, and I was raised by my mom and my grandmother. But my father was in the picture, but I spent more time for a good portion of my life with my mother and my grandmother, my aunt, my cousin. It was a lot of women. I was the only guy, but my my mother would, some Thanksgivings, would skip Thanksgiving dinner and we would go to the local shelters and celebrate Thanksgiving there by helping with the food. And she
That's
wanted to
Mm.
ingrain in me young, look, life isn't, always,
rosy.
it
Yeah,
sometimes is this, and we have to give back and we have to give up our comforts, and just be with the people, just talk to them, just have
yeah.
conversation, just be
Right.
equal, just no one's above anybody else.
Right, right.
This, of course, so ingrained in the ISISm as well too, of total equality between, men and women, between rich and poor. So I can never,
Hmm.
I was lucky to have, great role models and family members who really showed that growing up. There's no color, there's no judgment. Oh, sure, we've all got opinions about each other, but
Right, right,
but
right.
like serious judgments, none. Besides, I can at
Hmm.
this
Hmm.
point now. My family looks like the UN at Christmas. We are everybody sitting at the table.
Yeah.
So there's like,
Right
I
on.
could never see that. So community was important. Coming into the witchy community, the pagan community, was very eye-opening for me, because I got to
Mm.
meet incredible people like the two of you that got right down
Yeah.
and dedicated yourself for decades, not just years, for
Yeah.
decades, to
Yeah.
get movement going. And then I've
Yeah.
seen, the people who come and go and they play and they just want to dress up. And,
Hmm.
Harry Potter had a lot to do with that. And, uh,
Yeah.
I've seen the community change over the last, oof, oh, I can't even say 20 years. It's longer than that, because
Hmm.
I remember stepping into it. It was a little bit more Ren Fair inspired. And I remember I
Hmm.
had this whole crusade to take Wicca out of the Ren Fairs. I don't know why. There was a lot of, romanticism and fantasy really intertwined with it. I
Hmm.
understand why now. I get it. And then I saw it go through the 90s when it became all very scholarly and we were now like reading all the books. And then
Hmm.
I saw it
Hmm.
phase out of the 90s from that pseudo intellectualism into almost a form of activism. Now it's
Hmm.
at a very strong height of that.
Right.
And, its landscape is a little probably different for me, maybe because I'm older now, and I feel like
Right.
I when I was young and robust, I put in all the good years for the fight. Now it's time for the young kids to put their blood, sweat, and tears into
Yeah,
it,
right. Yeah.
Yeah.
and do
Yeah.
the fight. We kind of laid the path, and now that it's up to them to take the torch and further the path, and we'll see
Mm.
where they take it. So the community is interesting. I've seen people come together wonderfully, and I've seen some really crazy
Mhm.
stuff. I've worked with different
Yeah.
covens and different groups and all over the country. Some of the most
Yeah.
incredible things I saw was at the Aquarian Tabernacle Church in on the West Coast
Oh,
in
okay.
And
Washington. And I got
yeah.
to go to one of their rituals, and they had, I don't know, it was like the Ewok village from Return of the Jedi. They have these big
Oh my
redwoods,
God.
and they have these shrines built into the trees with doors and
Wow.
windows and bridges. And
Wow, that must be nice.
oh, well, yeah, well, coming from the city, yeah, we never saw stuff like
I
that.
know,
Maybe
Yeah.
we saw a tree. And
Yeah.
so it was beautiful. And to see their ritual reenacted, it was very theatrical. It was, everyone knew their lines and everyone
Yes.
dressed in the part, and it was beautiful. And then I've been to some places where the celebration is done on a borrowed baseball field, and there's
Right.
propped up tables and people are reading off a script. And I've seen so much. I've seen wonderful things, I've seen not such wonderful things, and I've been lucky to have that experience. I mean, look,
Yeah.
we could just use Witchfest as the example. That's, I always explain it this way. I'm like, it's such an incredible experience because one, it's on Astor Place. I'm
right.
like,
Mhm.
that
Mhm.
alone, just the name tells you it's
Yes.
on
Yes.
Astor Place. And if you know anything about Astor Place, the sun goes directly from east to west over
Yes.
this black
Yes.
tarmac, and
Yes.
it's gonna cook you while you're
Yes.
there.
It's
I
gonna
So
always
cook
tell
you.
people. Yeah, yeah,
it's
yeah.
ritual by fire. You got to be
Yes.
dedicated to be there. Oh, sorry. Hold on.
That's okay.
The little light went out. Let me just plug this back in. And so hold on one
Yeah.
second, everybody. Sorry about that. I
No
don't know why
problem.
it's not. There we go.
We are
So
doing. Yeah, we are in that Mercury retro, right? All of those techie
this
things.
is, what? That's
All
a
the things.
good to bring that up. This is absolutely Mercury retrograde at its best, and I'm glad the both of you have a sense of humor with it because this is the most unprofessional thing I've ever done.
No, no, no. That's the
It's
thing.
so.
We are live and we are going as we're going
Let's
live,
Right.
live shit
let's
happens,
talk.
you know?
That's
People,
it. That's right. That's
this
right.
is Mercury retrograde live. We're
Yeah.
dealing with
Thank you. That's it.
thunderstorms. We're dealing with lights going out and
We're
technology
dealing
not
with my
working.
son forgetting his wallet in his bedroom and had to walk behind me.
It's
It is
all the
it is.
things.
There it is. There's the proof, right? Like that
That's
answers
it.
all the questions. Thank
Yeah.
you. Good night. No, it's
That's the stuff.
but the
Oh,
two
that's
of you
awesome.
are
That's
such
awesome.
strong community leaders. So, what have now I've got a question for the two of you.
Mm.
What changes have you seen for the good, the bad, the indifferent, and what does it stir up in both of you?
Star, take that torch. I have
Well,
words, but I want you to go first.
okay. We see. I was gonna try to shove you under the bus and have you go first. Okay. No, what I've seen that's good. I've seen more of the other traditions and community come forward and say, I would like to participate in the rituals or to do
Right.
different things. Is that okay? And I'm like, sure, step up because
Mhm,
that's one
mhm.
less thing for me to do. Go ahead and do it. And I kind of give them carte blanche because I'm like, I don't like to micromanage every little
Mm,
thing because it's already a lot of work.
Mm.
right.
So that's one good part. What I find is that in some ways we get people volunteering and wanting to help, and then at certain points we get opposite
Mm,
of that and we're
Mhm.
like, this is a
right.
lot of work. So like you mentioned,
Mm.
younger people coming in and wanting to be part of it and to help, that is a big deal.
Huge.
So in some ways it's kind of sometimes disappointing when we don't get that help and we're like, we
Right.
really need
Right.
help, we don't know what else to do because it's a lot of work, it's a lot of
Yeah.
parts, moving parts to it. And
There are.
With
There
Witches
are.
Fest in particular.
which
Yeah,
is us
with
in
Witches
particular.
Fest.
So yeah, and it's one thing to run the everyday event, like the day event of it itself, but
Hmm.
dealing with the city and their requirements and everything. I'm jumping hoops the whole
Hmm.
time during the months
Hmm.
trying to get everything ready for us
Hmm.
to even have the event at all.
Yeah,
And if we
Right.
that's a
don't jump
lot.
through those hoops and get it done in a timely manner, in their timely manner, we don't have the event, after all of
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
So it's just like, yeah, it's a lot.
That's huge. For me, community is a big deal right now, and the changes that I've seen within community, taking it broader scale, the changes there have been some really positive ones. I think there've been when I say really positive, I believe that because of the expansion, let's say, of the world of um, I don't want to just say magic on various levels
Right.
throughout the
Right.
cultures, exposure is a good thing. What it leads to, it does lead to the downside. You'll have a lot of, I don't want to just call them, you'll have a lot of theater witch, you'll have a lot of theater magician, you know what I mean, right?
Yeah, I
So there's a
know.
lot of that, but at the same time it's allowing conversation to happen. And there's the good, the bad, the ugly with just the fact that conversation is happening. But I'm grateful for the
Yeah.
conversation because times are as challenging as they are, and I think it's important that those who practice
Mm.
non-traditional practices, whatever, that the image is not as skewed as it was perhaps 30, 40, 50 years ago. I think that that image of magical practitioner, esoteric
Right.
practitioner, magician, mage, witch, however you define yourself, I believe it's less skewed towards pure evil than it was 30, 40, 50 years ago. So,
Do do both of you think what we have gotten lucky with, and I'm going to use this as a very fun example. I never like to use Hollywood religion, but I I do love these movies. Just
Yeah,
they're not what
I'm a movie
influenced
buff.
me to
I'm a
do what
movie
I
buff.
do. But if we go back 40, 50 years to like all those wild Hammer films and all of
mhm,
those occultist thrillers set back as far as the like early to mid 60s,
mhm,
really really got the imagination turning about occultism, and it inspired a whole generation. And you can see that by the 70s and late 70s, that people were watching these movies and going, oh, there's got to be some reality base to that. But then the
yeah,
rest of society just saw them as creepy horror movies. And when they started seeing people behaving like this in real life, going, oh, wait a second, these people are going to
Wake up
turn into
call.
Christopher Lee and Peter Cushing. And you know it
yep,
did give it did give a sour note for a long time later from that, because those were the horror movies of their day.
Right.
And that it's
mhm,
always connected to horror movies.
In a
That was
negative
the weird
sense, yeah.
that was the thing. Like growing up, I never saw any of this connected to horror. And when I
mhm,
watch
mhm,
those movies, I thoroughly watch them as like, oh, they're campy, they're
Yeah,
yeah,
nostalgic, they're the
right.
yes,
60s, the
Entertainment,
yes,
'70s, the film
entertainment. Because
grain.
I'm
It's
like, that's
right.
not
Those act.
real.
Oh,
right,
it's just like it's very abstract. It's wild. It never influenced what I did and why, because where I saw this growing up, like I
mhm,
said, at home first in our culture, and then outside by so many diverse ethnicities and communities, I got to see all the different ways they practice this.
right,
And that was it. It was a mile square little city. We were all crammed in there. There was no privacy.
yeah,
We were all seeing
right,
each other's business. And
yeah,
so I always saw it as beautiful and cultural and enriching and artistic and mysterious and romantic. And it was all great. But I think you're right. I think dusting off some of the misconceived,
mhm,
scary
Yeah.
portions of it, and making us more
yes,
approachable to people. But do you
yes.
think that some people loved the mystique, and now that that's
Oh,
disappearing, they're kind of feeling maybe loss of identity, or it had a certain power that it gave them? you
I think in
know.
some ways you're right to that part, because they love the idea of the mystique and the magical,
Yeah.
and they're like, and I've got this power and whatever. But to me, I've always thought if someone has to tell me so much about how great their power is, then you absolutely are not. You're so opposite to
Right.
that. You watch it happen. The constant, I am super, look at the size of my, I mean, come on. It's like,
Yeah. Yeah.
whoa, okay, I'm sorry.
Well,
It just kind of,
A
and you
little
see
much.
all the time. You see, they have their witch wars on Facebook and anywhere else, and
yeah,
they go, I'm so
yeah.
powerful, and
Hmm.
I'm so, and I'm
Hmm.
like, okay, yeah, okay, right, and I'm walk away,
Yeah.
because I'm like, most of you are nothing. Like,
Right. Well,
you know,
and we
Right.
come from the golden age before social media, when we really had to go seek the people
Yeah.
out. We had to really go seek all this out. What
Yes.
do both of you think
Yes.
of the over materialism? Because
Mm.
there's more to say about this. The over materialism of this, that
Yep.
you can buy all the magical accoutrements on Timu and Amazon now. You can buy
Yes.
witch box sets that you get, subscribed to, and you get a different one every month. And I'm like, this is
Yes.
like Columbia House. I'm like, how did it turn
Yes.
into this? This is so
yeah.
bizarre to
Yes.
me.
The thing is that,
Yes.
unfortunately, okay,
Yes.
there's not, it's not a good and a bad thing. it's
Mm,
it's a people are have been around. A lot of people have been around for a long time, and the
mm,
people that have been around for a long time, we kind of were discussing that a bit earlier today, right, Rhonda?
Yeah. Yeah,
People
we
have been
were.
around
Yeah.
for a long time, and they have a lot of enrichment to offer. The thing is that a lot of those older people that have been around for many, many years, 50, 60 years in the business, and they're retiring now, and they have no money because they did not, it was not put out or merchandised out the way that
right.
they're doing it now.
Right. Yeah.
So there they are, and they have to either go fund me or different things, and which is to
Mhm.
me like begging. I don't care what anybody
Mm.
says. It's like being a beggar on the street of New York. That's what GoFundMe is to me.
Yeah.
To me, okay?
Mhm. Mhm.
Because when
Mhm.
we
Right on.
needed money, we went and we figured out a way, somehow, some sort of
Yeah.
finagled way to get the money without begging.
Right. Right.
So
Nobody
now,
was
the
afraid to
minute that they
work,
need
have three
something, I'll do
jobs, and
GoFundMe.
right.
You're a beggar on the
Right.
streets of New
Yeah.
York. You just have a
Yeah.
different mode of doing it. Okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Your cup is out. Your computer is your cup, and it's out hanging out. That's just it. That's just it. So I
Mhm.
think that unfortunately, a lot of these people are older. They're trying to retire, and they are 80 or whatever, trying to still sell something, their classes or whatever, because they
Right.
don't have the money to survive.
Mm,
If they don't have it, they never had a regular job, like what, where they can get certain things,
right.
or pension or whatever, because they've always been that professional witch. But it does not pay like that unless they're out in public or doing something on
Yeah.
via Zoom or something, and teaching
Yeah.
a class. So they basically don't have
Eh,
any passive income at all set up. And that here the younger people now have learned AI and all the different things, and they're merchandising it off. And I commend them for that, because they're making their money. But you literally started 4 years ago or 7 years ago, and suddenly you're the professional witch, because either you're white or whatever,
or
because they
2
will
years
follow that white
ago
witch more than they will follow anybody.
or 6 months
Yes,
ago.
or 2 years ago. I or one person that said, I became a high priestess in 1 year, and they're so proud of it. And I'm like, okay, like things like that.
Right.
And
Right.
somehow there they are merchandising it, because they're good
Mhm.
at social media, and they're making all that money, and they're the professional witch. In the meantime, that person that's been there for 40, 50, 60 years,
Hmm.
they're more knowledgeable, and what they're talking to you about is more real
Yeah.
than those that, I hate to say it like that. And so you see this
Right.
whole thing going on. They're
Mhm.
just trying to make their own way of how to merchandise what their knowledge is. And I understand why they're doing
Yeah.
it.
It's a little
Mm,
it's a little
Because they're
over.
trying to create, yeah, but it's like, like the TikTok witches or the Instagram
It,
witches, or it's become this thing.
right.
What were you trying to say, Rhonda?
it's over. There's an oversaturation, and I think we could. Just going to
Yeah.
say, I know there's a lot of there's so many tentacles in this conversation, but to really quickly say,
Right,
we
we
have
got
a
it. Yeah,
lot
I
of,
know the time, the
the
top of the
social
time. Yeah.
we had a lot of fallout with with the COVID. We had all kinds of things and people going virtual, but it also speaks to, and there is a lot of over commercialization. I do also
Yeah.
agree, monthly box kits, and you can get your, you'll be a witch and or something. I don't know what the case is, But there is a lot of that. I think that but is the case as is the case, though, you'll find that those people, those are more of the fad. They come in, they go out, and then
Right,
you'll
of
have those
course.
who
Yeah.
are
Yeah.
really in it for the long haul. Yeah. So,
Yeah,
anyway,
yeah.
getting back to our story, we got to
Yes,
get
yeah,
back.
with
Tell us
time, yeah,
about,
getting back.
uh, yeah. So, what projects do you have coming up, or what things are you thinking about working on right now?
Well, we have a really cool project actually while I'm here in Orlando and staying at my friend's beautiful home. He's my friend that I collaborated
Beautiful.
with on a project called Tarot Training Sleeves. He's a professor at a multimedia
Ooh.
university down here called Full Sail. His name is Dan Williams, and he has
Hmm.
his own acclaim to fame. He was on a cult classic sci-fi TV show called Who Wants to Be a Superhero, and he almost won. He almost won,
Oh man.
and so a lot of people know him as Parthenon. But he and I have been friends forever, and anything we work on together usually turns to gold. It just always does. And all these years, he's very
Fabulous.
mathematical, engineer brained, and doesn't understand how tarot works. And all these years we've known each other, he's seen me prepare for classes, he's helped me put things together. He's like, James, there's got to be an easier way to teach this. He's like,
Yeah,
I'm a teacher. He's like, there's got to be an easier
Right.
way than this. I'm like, yeah, well, if you come up with it, let me know. Do it. And so we did come up with
Right.
something. We came up with this fun product that's, if I use a industry term, it's edutainment. It's educational while entertaining. I always start my tarot classes off with the only book you need to learn tarot is the tarot itself. It's a book without a spine. All the other tarot books are wonderful. But they're other people's experiences. You have to learn to trust your own intuition. You have to learn to trust what's inside here
Right.
when you read these symbols. And so that's exactly what we did. The box itself, of course, looks like what? It looks like a book. But that was the tongue in cheek part of it. When you open it, it's a whole three-tier situation. You get these sleeves, almost like baseball card sleeves, and it begins with
Right.
the first tier, which is getting stickers with keywords. So you got to put all your cards in the plastic to protect them, and then you got to find all the keywords and put them to the cards, because my whole goal was to have it always hands on, because instead of turning to a book or reading a book, I wanted the people always having their
Yes.
cards in their hands and connecting with them. And so then the next step after you get past just being introduced with these keywords, I affectionately call it a cheat sheet, but my publishing company begs me to stop calling it that. There's a card that goes behind the card, and it's kind of like a Cliff Notes version. You pull it up when you want more information.
Beautiful.
And but in
Beautiful.
the third part is a code you scan, and it takes you to a website like on your smartphone or smart device, and will take you to the website Tarot Training. And we've created, well, painstakingly, now we go into Dan Williams' magical world. I mean, we designed all of this together, but now we go into the realm of technology, which is not my forte, obviously, as I struggled with the light on my camera tonight. And it takes you to a portal, and videos were created of these really beautiful puppet looking animation characters bringing the card to life and explaining more what it is. But then beyond that, it goes into a plethora of history,
Right.
astrological, magical meanings, spreads, and it's just unlimited forever. We'll just always be
Oh,
updating
that
that.
is fabulous. Yes.
And so it merges the 14th century technology with the 21st century technology. And it's available for pre-sale now. You can go to redfeathermbs.com or Amazon and look up Tarot Training
Mhm.
Sleeves. Order it, and it'll be released before the end of the year, hopefully in time for the winter holidays.
That
awesome,
is
awesome. That
fabulous. Can
sounds great.
people grab it from your website that's scrolling? Can I get
Not
information there as well, or
not
just Red
yet, not
Feather?
yet, only
Red
because
Feather.
it's all
Okay.
pre-sale stuff. So this is all to
Yes.
do with the publishing company. They're going to ship it out immediately.
Okay.
They'll do it faster than I would. My tarot deck, the Offset Gypsy
Perfect.
Tarot deck, that's still available in Amazon, Barnes and Noble, Red Feather. It's pretty much everywhere. I've seen it in like the craziest
Okay.
places I would have never imagined seeing it. So you can still find that. That,
Fabulous.
like you said
I have
earlier in
mine
the
over here.
show, it was a autobiography because all my
Yes.
tarot contemporaries who went on to become, famous authors kept saying, "When are you going to write a book?" And I'm like, I'm not going to write a book. My life is like a comic book. I'm not going to write a book. No one wants to read that.
My God.
And then I realized it's not a book I need to tell my story through with tarot. It's a tarot deck. So I based the major
Yeah.
arcana on my time with Universal Studios, which is where the name Osset
Oh,
Gypsy
fab.
comes from. Osset is the sort of French Egyptian bastardized pronunciation of the goddess Isis. And the gypsy part
Mm,
was a nickname given to me at the place where I still work, which I'm working this summer at Sun and Star Souls over at Lost Continent, and it became a nickname. It was a name tag actually given to me, and then the same friends who gave me the name tag created my logo and my website. I didn't even know what a website was. I'm like,
that
what
is
is
awesome.
this? I didn't have a computer at
That
the
is
time. That's how
awesome.
far this goes back. And they threw me
Right.
out in the world and said, James, everything you do now, you have a logo, you have a brand, you have a website, now go. And
Yes.
25 years later, I'm still here. I know the name stirs a little controversy until people understand what it means, and then hopefully it calms
Yeah.
people down.
Excellent.
You
That
know,
is
Okay. Right.
fabulous.
Okay. So we're running a little bit behind our time.
so sorry.
So that's okay. No, no,
No,
no.
it's
We
been a great
enjoyed it. This was
conversation.
wonderful. Yeah. This was like, we wish we had more time. But
Yes.
what the
Well, we'll
next
get
question I
together
wanted to
again
ask
soon and
you,
do it again.
yeah, absolutely.
Right
One
on.
of the questions I wanted to ask you, do you have
Yeah.
any events coming up this year that you'll be going to or
Let's
participating
let's
with?
see this. I for the last couple of years I've been hitting up as many of the conventions and everything as I could, and this year I decided to just lay low a little bit. We needed to get tarot training sleeves done, and I was in a little
Mhm.
transition about where I wanted to live. As of right now, I don't have anything completely confirmed that's open to the public
Right.
right
Okay.
now until the first week of September. If you're traveling through Universal Studios in Orlando, I'm at Islands of Adventure most days. You can come get a tarot card reading there with me in this incredible
Fabulous.
ambiance that, looks exactly like the major arcana in my tarot deck.
That's
Um, but no big events planned yet. I just took
okay.
a breather
Sounds
because
good.
it's been like 2 years of constant traveling all
Yeah.
over the
It's a
country
lot of work.
promoting the deck.
Yeah, it's a
Yes.
lot of work. It's a lot of work.
It's huge.
Understandably. Alrighty. Rhonda, we are screening his website across the page.
Yeah, we
And
have been streaming it over. We've been streaming it through the conversation.
Thank you,
yes,
But
thank
yes,
you. I
yes. We wanted
appreciate it
listen,
everyone
so
to know.
much. Thank you.
it's been great. And thank you
Yeah,
so much for making the time to be with us this week. Yes, we will find you and bring you back for more
Yes,
conversation.
I look
Awesome.
forward to it
James, have
already. I love you girls.
thank
thank
you.
you.
Lovely
Thank you.
having you
Thank
here
you.
too.
Thank you. Exactly. Listen, we're going to have a
Okay.
little word from our sponsors.
All right, everyone. And though we are a little bit behind time, we know this. We still want to give you your astrology intro. So here we go. August horoscope says that
Yes.
Mercury retrograde is going to be turning our summer into a bummer. So we've seen a lot of that happening already. So tonight we're going to find out what's in store for all of you Cancers, Leos, and Virgos. All right. So,
Yes.
Cancer, monthly affirmation is I choose opportunities that compensate me rather than drain me. Oh, bloody hell that makes sense. Again, I
Yes.
choose opportunities that compensate me rather than drain me. Okay, so Mercury retrograde is swooping in with its classic mental mix up this month. So your Cancer horoscope for August is making sure you stay on top of your game. You hear that? Financial matters will hit the front burner under the new moon that had passed on August 4th, and that goes through all the way till the 12th. So start a budget or pursue a new income stream coming in, okay? But Mercury retrograde kicks off in your communication sector that same night that it did on August 4th. So if you need to have an important conversation over the next few weeks, do so with some extra consciousness and try not to take misunderstandings personally. I know that's a hard thing to say and do, but
Yeah.
try. The middle of the month finds Mercury backspinning into your chart's money zone. So double check your numbers and beware of making any big impulse purchases as logistical snags are likely. And then on the full moon on August 19th, it's going to bring some deeper emotions out from under whatever rocks or caves they've been hidden in. And while facing these feelings isn't easy, you'll have to do so if you want to turn a corner. Okay? You'll feel a little more social and mentally present once Virgo season begins on August 22nd, especially once Mercury retrograde wraps up a few days later, which is good. So use the last days of August to catch up on texts and emails and reach out to friends to make some late summer plans. All right? Hey,
Fabulous.
Cancer.
Awesome. Let's head to our Leos. All right, Leos. Leo, your monthly affirmation is love flows to me freely, effortlessly, and without apology. Again, love flows to me freely, effortlessly, and without apology. The sun is shining in your sign this month, so your Leo horoscope for August 2024 is bursting with action, excitement, and new opportunities. Things kick off on a high note with that new moon back in Leo on August 4th. The sun and moon will be vibing out with motivating Mars and lucky Jupiter, inspiring you to pursue your goals with optimism and boundless energy. This Mercury retrograde, which we're in, kicks off later that night. So this back on the 4th. So if you're doing any birthday season shopping, you may want to save the receipts just in case. Good fortune started flowing around August 7th, so a couple days ago, as the sun in your sign blows a kiss to jovial Jupiter, boosting your confidence and infusing your aura with positivity. This Mercury retrograde will again feel extra personal once it dips back into your sign on August 14th. But that Mercury Kazimi a few days later could bring about some mental breakthroughs that give you clarity on how to move forward post backspin. Speaking of breakthroughs, though, the full moon on the 19th is a big one for your relationships, and it may be time to make some decisions about either leveling up your commitments or taking a step back. Your birthday season ends on August 22nd, giving you a chance to start focusing a bit more on your finances, a task that'll be easier once Mercury retro ends on August 28th.
All right.
All right.
Sounds great. So, Virgo,
Mhm.
your monthly affirmation is forgiveness sets me free and allows me to live in the present moment. Again, forgiveness sets me free and allows me to live in the present moment. It says a lot of people say forgiveness is good for the soul. And I'm just, I don't know.
Yeah, what you gonna
Okay.
say?
I'm not into that whole thing, but to each his own. To each his own. Okay.
Mhm.
Leo season may be the peak of summer, but rest up because your Virgo horoscope for August 2024 isn't going to fully rev up until the end of the month. So that's okay, Virgo. That new
Mhm.
moon, August 4th, was a good time to get introspective and reflect on what you'd like to accomplish ahead of your birthday season. Look forward to a summery glow up too, because romantic Venus enters your sign later that day on August 4th, sprinkling its alluring magic all over you. Just after the new moon, your ruling planet Mercury will station retrograde in your sign. So take a deep breath and move slower with your logistical matters to avoid any major mix ups. The retrograde intensity lets up a little bit about mid month once Mercury backspins out of your sign, but some cosmic clashes could create tension between your career, your personal life, and your relationships.
Hmm.
Use that full moon on August 19th as a time to let go of unnecessary obligations so you have more time to focus on the important stuff that is more relevant to you. The month ends on a high note as Virgo season begins on August 22nd, and Mercury retrograde ends less than a week later. So rejoice.
Yes.
Solar spotlight is on you. You'll be feeling much more revived throughout this time. All
Right
right.
on. Right
And next
on.
week, we will be doing
Cards.
Libra, Scorpio, and Sagittarius. So we will, okay. Now on to,
Tarot time.
yay. All right. So what are we
Woo.
cards on today? What do you think,
Well,
Rhonda?
well, since we're dealing with our Mercury retrograde, which all speaks about the redos of many things, let's just throw a card just to see what is it that we need to revisit. What's going on in our world that we need to revisit? Because we're right in the beginning of our harvest season. There's still time to grow things and have things manifest for us. What do we need to revisit to make those
Mm,
those things manifest fully?
all right.
All right.
What have you got going on for you?
The what am I revisiting? Look at me, Ace of Pentacles.
Oh
Mm,
my
mm, mm,
God.
mm. I don't know. I'm not gonna go deep in the weeds, but I think you know what this is speaking about too. I think you know what this is talking
Yeah,
about.
right.
But
We know.
we know. This is basically I'm going to use this get back to basics. This is starting with an ace, but I'm grateful because I love my aces. They do tell me that the universe, that divine hand popping out of that cloud with that coin, that is opportunity. That's an opportunity coming my way. So what do I need to revisit? I need to go back to basics, go back to the beginning, start over and see how to invest my resources. That's what
Exactly.
I read.
Okay,
Yes.
and you would not believe I have a pentacles as well. I have got
Ah, why am I surprised?
the
Why
six
am I
of
not surprised?
pentacles. Six
Oh,
of
Lord. Oh, look
pentacles.
at
Oh my
you.
goodness. And basically, it's almost like we've got your back, and I'm going to shower you down with, some of the, if you look at him, he's like showering them down with a few coins and coming at them, almost like
Mhm.
investing in them,
Yes.
like
Yes.
investing in things to come because it's the early starters, the young people there, or his children or whatever, and he's
Mhm.
investing in them for their passive income to come. So it's some
Right
things
on.
that it has to do with investing, in what's right for you financially, and a lot of it is pertaining to
Yeah.
passive income, of what invest in yourself, not the for now, but more for your passive income future wise. This
I'm
is what
down with
it's saying
that.
to me. It's more like a future investment of things to come. So it's
Yes.
and it's basically telling you follow through with investing in yourself. And for those
And
that
it's
we
very
read, well,
practical.
right, we did Cancer, Leo, and Virgo, right? Today, tonight was it Cancer, Leo, and Virgo? I think, right? I think yes,
Yes,
yeah. So
Cancer, Leo, and Virgo. And next week we'll
right,
do
so
Libra, Scorpio, Sag.
right, so kind of like run through some of that and see how it applies to you and where it might work, so you can invest in yourself and
Yes,
that passive income that you want to have. Okay, because that's
that's
something
it. And
unfortunately I think we all need to work on more.
don't hesitate to revisit. Start back at the beginning and look at how you are
Mm,
investing that in.
I
Where are you
mean,
starting
isn't
from?
that
What's your starting
apropos? Is
point?
that not
It is
apropos?
apropos.
That
It
is
really
so
is.
apropos.
Cards do not
Okay.
play.
Yeah, exactly. Okay.
Well,
So we want to thank everyone for being with us tonight. Anyone that's in the
yeah,
chat, we want to thank James Jacob Perry for being with us. Also, Gypsy.
yeah,
Do check
yes.
him out on his website, on Facebook, and anywhere else that he's on. And we
Good
want to
stuff.
thank everyone. And we are expecting to have Jade Aurora with us next week. So
Yes.
I know, right? She's fantastic.
Yes.
Uh,
Yes.
so we want to
Looking
thank you all
forward.
for everything. And Rhonda,
Please like, subscribe, and share.
yay!
We'll see you
Thank you
next
all.
week,
See you next
everyone.
week.
Have a good one.
Yes.